So she kind of commented this whole thing about how she had a great first year at university. And I felt profoundly jealous. I felt profoundly jealous. I had great moments at university. I had really good moments at university, don't get me wrong. I had good moments at university. But to say that it was the best year of my life, I don't know about that. I tried to comfort myself. This is the same girl who really enjoyed Freshers Week. Freshers Week was the worst part of university for me, probably. And things only got better after Freshers Week. My second term was better than the first, and a number of ways my third term was kind of better than the second. It was less, cute clothes and stuff. My room was cleaner, and I had a little bit more peace in certain areas. And I got really close in terms of connecting with someone else in a way that I hadn't previously. So, yeah, in a number of ways, it was comforting to think that like our experiences were just different. Maybe her second year was horrible. But I was thinking about how it bothered me that like I actually felt disappointment that her year had gone so well. Like my heart sunk. My heart sunk that she'd had a good year. And I was thinking about that. I was thinking about that, and I was thinking maybe I should reflect. I should think about why um, I had that reaction, because it doesn't seem like a reaction that serves me, that is good for me, or for other people around me. So I'm gonna think about that. I'm gonna have a good think about that. But before I have a think about that, I encountered another video in which this guy says, like, he's some psychedelic guy on Instagram, and he's saying that give all of your impurities to Kali. And I googled Kali. She is like the mother of death in Hinduism. I thought about how freeing it is. I didn't like the video because I didn't want to be seen having like touched something like this, because it was so cool in the beginning, and then it kind of got like off because he says like you need to feed this like goddess of death. And you know what, I'm gonna keep making this video and finish my thought, even though it seems like I'm like, go on a tangent. It doesn't seem interesting, but I'm gonna say it because I want to start saying my thoughts, and this is how you develop it. So I thought about Kylie, and I thought about how freeing it would be to give up something like that to her, to give up sensation to someone else, to like cast off in that way. I mean, I suppose many Christians might do that in the way of like Jesus Christ, like that Lord, and from the Bible. And basically, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about not just that freedom, but also the fact that I hesitated to like that video. And many times I don't like videos like that. I only like videos when they're really cool. And I have this friend who's really pretty, and she likes all sorts of content. Like she like deep stuff, but she like memes and things too. And she seems profoundly free. And there's certain girls I aspire to at university. There's a girl in my school, in my university called Aitana, and she's like Ukrainian or something, or like Slavic, and she's like really tall, and she has really skinny legs. She looks like a model. Her face isn't all that pretty, okay, but she dresses really well, and she's like really skinny. And kind of it showed me how thin is such a currency, because you don't have to be that attractive, but if you're skinny, yeah, you can like, there's so much power in being skinny. But in any case, she's like skinny, and I sometimes aspire to be like her aesthetically. And part of aspiring to be a girl like that is being a little bit boring and a little bit cold. And I think it gives you a certain degree of power. But I'm starting to think that, like, when I think about this girl, like, I imagine she doesn't live a very fulfilling life. Like, she's always posting pictures of her face and stuff, and that doesn't seem like the habit of a very fulfilled person. She's obsessed with losing weight in a manner that is very unhealthy, and I don't really, I don't know if she has, like, does she want the same things out of life than me? We all pretty much want the same sorts of things out of life. We all want to be loved. And the fact that she is pursuing external validation to such an extent would suggest that she does just want to be loved. But I think that the things that she's arriving at and some of the desires she's able to articulate are different from my own. I want to be a writer. I want to be someone who is doing creative work, who creates work, and I have such creative and intellectual ambitions as a part of my identity. Like, it's very fused with how I view myself. as a creator, and also the what I did get out of it. It's not just how I view myself, not just the looking glass, also like true sensation. And I was thinking about how there's this dichotomy, and I'm working on an essay right now about this, started it, and I've been thinking about this idea for a while. But this whole idea of how there is this dichotomy we create between intellect and emotion, how we view these as separate things. And I was thinking about how this affects the kinds of things we tell ourselves about the world and how we behave within it. So, for instance, in terms of reading fiction versus nonfiction, there are certain guys who are self proclaimed utilitarians, which is a big word they use to disguise the real word they should use to term themselves, which is selfish. But some people are like that. They are interested in only reading nonfiction. They're only interested in reading nonfiction because they believe that reading nonfiction is like a very directly a transactional thing. It's something that's very useful. And I think such guys are also those who put limits on the extent of their kindness, depending on who they're talking to. The kindness that they offer their girlfriend is very different from the kindness that they offer a friend because its source is not the same in their eyes. And this level of compartmentalization and like rejecting such a large part of life or seeing it as inherently separate from another part of life, I think makes them unkind people, or like, well, it makes them have limited lives at least. Maybe I shouldn't judge them completely. Sometimes people can't help being that way. Socially, it's very easy to be that way as well. And I was thinking about this, and I thought about how there's a similar dichotomy I'm applying to my understanding of what it means to be a woman. Because in my eyes, there are two possibilities. You can either be like an interesting woman who like pursues her ambition and is creative and flawed and just like has fun hair and dresses the way she wants, and then on which is often androgynous. And then on the other hand is a woman who doesn't go after her ambition and she's someone who is loved by a man. And in my eyes, these are two like separate things. I'm thinking about like how I viewed this dichotomy historically, and I wondered, do I have any examples in my life that would disprove this dichotomy? And I thought about my intellectual heroes. I mean, I made a list of them, right? Like currently, I'm really interested in Susan Sontag, Joan Didion, Fran Lebowitz, Maya Angelou, Eartha Kitt, James Baldwin, Alanis Morissette, Adrian Lenker, Albert Memmi, John Berger. Um, and this is just like a starting point. I'm sure, I hope this list gets more culturally diverse because I'm sure there are ideas from non white American people who I could maybe benefit from hearing. And not because they're non white, but just because I believe the nature of ideas is that they don't just like spring from white American minds. But I was sort of thinking about how Joan Didion is the one who is between these two, right? Like she's stylish and she has this guy, um, but she's also like a writer and she has singularity and she's a little bit strange. And that's a bit encouraging to me because I'm also a little bit strange, well, a lot bit strange actually. And I was thinking about that and I wondered if that kind of life would be possible for me. Would I be able to like live a life of integrity, live a life where I honor my personhood and my ambitions, and I'm also loved in this life? And like that's one of the things that's so encouraging about weight loss actually, is that being small kind of allows you to be whoever you want a little bit. Eve Babbitt, who is often compared to Joan Didion, and just an unfair comparison because Joan Didion is a far superior writer, and their writing styles, like maybe they wrote about like some of the same cultural moments, but they're so different, and Didion does it so much better, and Babbitt is so vain. In any case, Babbitt wrote a letter to Didion and asks her, like, Joan, do you think that you would be able to write what you do if you weren't so small? If you weren't so physically unthreatening, do you think your husband and those around you would be able to handle your success? Like, perhaps the reason that and I'm paraphrasing here, all of this, of course, perhaps the reason they're able to tolerate your success and not be threatened by it is because you are so physically unthreatening. And as someone who is trying to develop a particular kind of like physique and work on becoming a healthier person every aspect of my life, I'm not immune to the luxuries that being small affords girls, affords women. And I sometimes think that beauty is sort of like what allows you to be ambitious. Like it's also what prevents you from being ambitious. I think about all these like writers who present in very masculine ways. I think a lot of my favorite writers on this list, like Susan Sontag or Fran Lebowitz, are bisexuals. They're women who like other women as well, for instance, on this list, I'm sure. Adrian Lenker, for instance. And they often dress in very butch ways. They dress androgynous or very overtly masculine. And I think to some extent, this presentation, combined with a rejection of female norms and norms in general, allow them to, many norms at least, allow them to have a authorial voice that is original, ambitious, and liberated. And when I say liberated, I mean that they're not constrained by virtue of being a woman in the same way that other women might be. And I think that's something that being thin affords you. I think that when you look beautiful, you are afforded privileges. And I'm starting to think now, as I say this out loud, whether it's okay to accept those privileges, to actively pursue them through the pursuit of beauty. Like, I want to feel beautiful, so I will continue to pursue beauty, but I'm not unaware of the fact that that pursuit of beauty also affords you a certain status among men. I guess it's maybe not exploiting that power, I suppose. If you have that power, to not exploit it, or to not be moved by people who are moved by that power, like people who value you for your beauty. And I mean, to be fair, there are certain people I look at and I think they're very attractive from afar, but it's only a drawing. I heard someone describe physical beauty as something which gets your foot in the door, and then personality is what's really important. I think about this guy at university who I thought was very attractive, Edward, and then I had a conversation. Imagine people find this video. I don't think they will, but Edward, is that lack of self-belief? I hope they find this video, actually. I think it's that's the thing. I hope everybody finds video and I get billions of views. But I also hope no one ever finds my channel because, well, I was watching this discussion between James Baldwin and Maya Angelou. I'm going to watch the full thing. But in this video, they basically talk about the freedom that comes with like lack of fame, like how it allows you to be authentic. Otherwise, you just like play for different galleries all the time and you try to replicate what other people found interesting instead of challenging yourself. So you stop being dynamic as a writer and you start taking cues from other people about how you should be. So, I mean, I keep like criticizing compartmentalization, and I take issue with people who limit themselves according to society's norms about obedience, and then they reap benefits from it. To me, such behavior is cowardice. So I don't want to be a coward. So maybe it's important to me for the retention of my soul and the preservation of my bravery that I do not like aspire to be an Aitana when I could be something that's so much more interesting, which is myself. So I'd like to do that. I think I've settled the matter for myself now. Glad we had this talk. You don't have to take cues from anybody about how to behave, not society, not other women. And I think that what you could listen to are the impulses within you that feel both difficult and good. I think this particular combination of difficult and good often suggests that you should do something. When you have the impulse to share a meal that you really enjoy when you have the impulse to tell the truth even when there are going to be repercussions, when you are afraid to be brave or reluctant to work hard. I think these are the instances I've felt that what's needed is to do the difficult thing, because the difficult thing is often the good thing. So when you have that combination, I think that's one of the indications that you're on the right track. And I keep thinking about the phrase of like being your own man. And to me, wherever I've heard this phrase, probably like a movie or something, to me, this phrase suggests living life on your own terms and to no longer blame other forces for how you behave, taking your life by the reins and doing it. And I think that that feels profoundly liberating, and it's something we offer men. And what we offer men as a society sometimes includes very good things like this. It is a privilege to be autonomous. And Susan Sontag talks about how, in order to be a woman, sort of, or in order to live life a particular way, in order to basically renounce the patriarchy and live in opposition to it and live a life of true freedom, you have to give up the freedoms and luxuries afforded to the fool and to the vain and other groups of people like this. So, yes, you will have to stop living your life sort of blaming the patriarchy in a number of ways for your individual day-to-day behavior. You might use the patriarchy as a way to contextualize your life and be aware of it because it's there and it's just a phenomenon I think that we can observe socially, but and intellectually, of course, and practically in our lives. But also beyond it being an observable phenomenon, there's an extent to which you have to be ruled by it in your life. You can limit the extent to which that sickness affects you. Maybe you can't click like the right percentage of your choice, like 90% or 128% or 5%, but I think you can limit it. And I think one of the ways you limit the influence of the patriarchy is by choosing to live a life of freedom and a life of autonomy. And I wonder what it would feel like to give up the freedoms of the fool, to give up the freedoms of the very vain. I know that when you give up deceit, it can be profoundly liberating. It's one of the ways which allows your soul to breathe, allows you to breathe for the first time. And I think that's great. I think it allows you to honor your ambition. I think it contributes to selfhood. I think it gives you a positive impression of yourself. It is not in the service of the ego in the most direct way. It serves your spirit. It's like it provides spiritual sustenance more than anything else, and intellectual gratification as well to some extent. Intellectual integrity and bravery are what you develop in the interim. And to some extent, the entire enterprise of living can feel so absurd at times that you think, like, what difference does it make? But I think that doing good in this small way, and I might just be saying this because I want to put a positive spin on the situation and this video with having reached a conclusion of some sort. I might just be doing that. But I suspect, and let's see when I finish the sentence if I agree with it, but I suspect that doing this little bit of good, choosing truth, can be one of the ways in which you honor the life that you lead and that you honor the vessel that you have been handed. Because I think sustainably, on a more practical front, I think sustainably I can't live the sort of life I'm hungering after. And I think many people can't do that if they are in service of deceit. I mean, I saw the most encouraging thing today, actually. I think it was Ursula K. Le Guin who was saying that at one time, like she was saying that capitalism is something that we can overcome, because at one time absolutism was running the show. Like, we believe in the divine right of kings, she said. And again, paraphrasing, but we believed once in the divine right of kings, and human beings can undo other human forces. I think about generational trauma and how it's up to you as an individual to like unlearn that. And I think that you have to like resist. And I think that colonialism is something that is becoming less and less acceptable. I think we're still living in a post colonial world, and its ramifications are felt deeply by me and by others. And I think that you have to resist it. And I think that resisting it is important. And I think that resistance in general is important to me. Like to dance is an act of resistance, to laugh is an act of resistance. And I love this thing that Maya Angelou said. It was so affecting. She said that, she doesn't like people basically who, like, complain and are wailing all the time because they're not there to make a difference. And she suggests that laughter is how you kind of know you're still alive. Like, it's like little physicians inside you, like going to like knock on the door and check, like, are you in there? Are you okay? I really like that. So, point being that I think this is the conclusion I've come to. I'd like to be my own woman and see where that takes me, because I keep being exposed to profoundly interesting women, and they're bringing something very interesting into my life. They're bringing like intellectual engagement, also deep emotional engagement. And I've like been feeling really down the past couple of days, and I'm being encouraged watching like funny Fran Lebowitz videos. And I think about fashion, like when I'm dressed in a manner that I think is stylish, it doesn't particularly matter whether the people down the street will understand how avant-garde and interesting my outfit is. I understand, that's enough. So maybe the same could go for how I approach like my emotional life. Like, it just feels very scary to let go of this notion, because it's been very important for me to be liked by men. But I'm looking back at them and I'm thinking, I don't know if I like them very much. And I'd like to know what life looks like maybe when it's not in the service of men. You're kind of taught as a woman that your like years are limited in your prime and stuff. And like each year should be spent in courtship and like trying to secure a match. But I'd like to see like what happens when I don't do that. Like, I'm kind of considering maybe not dating for a while, seeing how that goes. I tried doing it last time. Wasn't successful because I'm such a catch. But I'm not laughing, seriously. I tried to like stop dating, and then someone liked me, which always feels so good. But I wonder what dating could look like when I am deeply in love with myself, because I am falling in love with myself. And right now, it's the early stages. I like to be in a long-term committed relationship with myself, because I was seeing it as kind of a choice, right? In the same way I was seeing it as a choice between being an interesting, ambitious woman and being an, a woman who is loved. I also saw this as a choice. Like, I wondered, is it possible to really get to know myself while dating others? Because on one hand, I'm exposed to all these thinkers who say things like, oh, love is a need, it is an important part of life, you need to like make sure dating people and to feed the ego, to feed the soul, and all that. And like I think, oh, I could totally get to know myself while I'm seeing someone else. But you know what, I don't have the best track record of that. I'm getting better at than when I was younger. But when I say like I want to get to know myself, I'm not saying I wouldn't be open to a relationship if I were to meet someone I really like. But even then, it's like maybe I should like definitively choose like, no, even if I meet someone I like, no, I'm not gonna do anything because I want to get to really know myself. And choosing myself means that like instead of going to a bar crawl just to flirt with guys in some like society thing, maybe I could just go home and journal more and write more and spend more time cultivating myself and thinking about how I'm feeling. And it's just hard because if I really want to get to know myself, that'll mean choosing to spend that time with myself rather than, a bar crawl or like, random thing with strangers. I just really enjoy social interactions and I look forward to the opportunity of connection with others. And that desire to connect with others, but usually forces me, usually allows me, usually ends up with me in like some random society, like classroom, saying hello to people because I want to connect with them. But I wonder if I'll feel that way. I mean, I want to make the most opportunity, and like, I like getting dressed. I like it. It's all, I guess, a practice of the ego. And maybe I need to like do judgment calls. Like, if I'm journaling, I'm really in a big session, I don't want to go, then I'm not gonna go. I think I have to first decide who I am. And I'm not saying, I mean, that's gonna be a long process. I don't think it's gonna happen in like a few months and then I'm done. It could, but I think that it'll be a really long process, and it's going to take a number of years before I arrive at 90% of who I think I am and what I'm capable of. So I've gotten one thing straight though. I think I want to start being my own woman, and that will mean taking certain risks, like not agreeing to do certain things with guys that feel off on like on a theory level. Like, maybe it feels good because girls just want to have fun, but maybe on some level I'm not satisfied. So not engaging with those things until I receive a satisfactory answer from myself, and from the guy that I'm seeing. I'd like to I'd like to be my own woman because I like dressing authentically in fashion. I think it's important to present authentically, perhaps in writing. It makes for interesting art when you're not trying to people please, in a good argument. So why should it be different in the romantic sphere? I want there to be less like compartmentalization on my part, because I think about like my videos, and I was thinking today, like, I don't want to end up with someone who watches my videos and isn't like profoundly moved by them and doesn't find them interesting or funny. Like, the last guy I was with tried to engage with me on some level, intellectually, and he recognized I dressed well and that I'm funny and charming. And I want to be seen for all these things. I can now see there are guys out there who recognize these things, and I'm seeing my friends. And this is the thing, the people you surround yourself with show you what is possible, right? Like my friend, one of my friends, what he does is he writes down like his thoughts on things, and my other friend, like, she writes scripts. So there's people who allow their voices to be heard creatively, and perhaps they don't let themselves speak as much as I do. I'm trying to develop this like thing of allowing myself to reach my full conclusion, partly because this is like a male proclivity, and it serves the creation of their work. I was going to say ambition, but a lot of this bloated ego stuff is what actually happens, and selfishness what happens when you imitate guys. And I don't like the way like most guys live their lives, so I'm not saying that they're like worth imitating, but this is one of the ways socialized guys, which allows them to create like work and to like complete work. So these are the people who provide you with examples of how you can be. And I heard someone say that just like give time to yourself, kind of, and cultivate yourself, and then unknown allies will emerge. I want to see what life looks like when I'm authentic. I think about Florence Given. I'll write down her name too in my list of like idols. I'm making different lists of like even the idols in the different sections. Like Susan Sontag is not in the same list as John Berger. Interestingly, the group of people I'm least inspired with are like, they're all men: Albert Memmi and John Berger. But in any case, I have decided to live life on my own terms in this one way. And this one way, I should be specific, is I want to be acting in a manner that is less concerned with male desire, and act in a manner that honors my integrity. Yes.